So in this particular case, we are going to focus on the system design phase of information system design. And then particularly, we are going to focus on user interface design aspect of this. So having said that, let's start the system design aspect of the phase. So as I told you earlier, we were discussing about 5 phases in the system development life cycle. And particularly in system design cycle, we are going to focus on 3 things. And first one is about user interface design. That's what I'm going to cover today. Then we are going to focus on the data design. And third, we are going to discuss the system architecture. So, and at the end of this, once you finish these 3, we will get what we call the system design specification, which you are going to use for the implementation, right? So let's move on. First, looking at what are the phases of system design. So the idea of system design that we are going to make information systems to make it efficient in an organization, the task day-to-day works. And especially when we want to build the system, we want to make sure that it's effective, reliable, and maintainable, right? So what do you mean by reliable? Like, for example, you can say that it's error-free. So when it comes to handling this, you have to make sure that you are handling the input errors, which means that when users are asked to input data, so they can type anything they want, right? Provided that our information system should handle or minimize the input errors. Then there could be processing errors, then hardware failures, and also we as human, we can make mistakes. So if you can address those, we can say that the system is reliable. Then the next one is, we can say the system is maintainable, which of course it's a flexible and then scalable, which means that whenever your number of users grows, if you can handle in a way that information system cater for that, we can say scalable. And whether it's could be modified or modifiable, so we can say maintenance. So the maintenance, we'll have a separate session, we'll focus on this information, but for the time being, we'll focus on this. Third one, we can say system is effective. Because we have various different business requirements and meets the user needs. Now, for example, we were discussing from the right in beginning, student information management system. So there are a couple of requirements. Now, for example, we want to handle everything from student registrations to issue transcript and unless they leave a university, for example. So we need to support all the what we call the business requirements and user requirements. And once you do this, the design phase, we will prepare what we call the design specification. And usually this will be presented to the top management, and then you move to the next phase, which is implementation stage. Right. Now, having said that, is starting from the very beginning, you have to think like a user as a designer. Now, we are looking at the system analysis perspective, so you can think like a user. So, for example, usually you have some way of interacting with your information system. We call it's a user interface. It should be easy to learn. Anybody should be able to use this. And then you have to focus on any issues you might be facing for in future. For example, in Y2K issue, when year 2000, what has happened, most of the systems were built on 2-digit year. So for example, 1980, it was just 80. And what has happened, like people have not thought about like what might happen when year 2000 came. So that was a kind of an issue in most of the information system. So that means you have to focus on your future requirements as well. Right. Now, you have to provide flexibility as well. Now, I hope you have used, ATM machines. Yes. Okay. So if you have used ATM machines, you can answer this. Continue the okay, so it's like this now. When you log into your ATM machine, usually they provide you two options. Sometimes you say in the first interface itself, when you log in using your pin, it says you can withdraw 5,000, 10,000, and so on, and then you can go for custom amounts as well. So various banks operate slightly differently, but ideally you will see that there are some fixed amounts, and then you can have customized amounts as well, right? So that's what I want to highlight here. Then data management. For example, if you look at this, simple picture, that you can see that it scans QR code or a barcode, and which automatically, handle, input data. So most of the time, data inputs nowadays could be automated, which is very effective. We can minimize the errors, and it will be fast as well. So when you are designing a system, you have to focus on these, pointers. Right. So today's talk, I told you, like, we are going to focus on user interface. Now, when I say user interface, this will be the place where we use users to interact with our information system, right? And in our case, we might have hardware, software, various different screens, menus, functions, outputs, and so on, right? Simply, your user interface is the communication medium, so how users interact with your information system. Now, then once you talk about this, you have to think about some of the concepts in what we call the human-computer interaction, how humans interact with the computers, especially the relationship between the computers and the people, right? So why is this? Because we are using various different devices, like we use mobile phones, we have tabs, we have desktops, and so on, right? Various way to interact. And then how we interact is very, very important. Now, what are the user-centered principle in interface designs? So first thing is you have to understand the business. So how do you understand? Mainly, you can use the tool functional decomposition diagram. Remember, we drew a FDD where we understand each of these different branches in the information system. So that's the first thing to design an interface. So in today's task, also think about that. First of all, you can focus on drawing a functional decomposition diagrams to understand what are the different areas in the information system design. And we use graphics, so make sure that you use graphics effectively, which focus on aesthetic aspect, at the same time ease of use as well, right? I will come to this point where you use different colors in different places, like when you're form filling. So different colors we can use to indicate different parts in your information system. Third one, you can always think like a user. Assume that you are a user, and then you are going to interact with the information system. In that way, you can think how user might interact with your system. Right. The fourth point is very, very important. So before you actually develop an information system, you should use what we call prototype. Like, you can draw sketches and how information system look like, how you interact. And that's exactly what we are going to do today in your group work. We are going to build something called user storyboards, where we are going to indicate, like, from the start to the end, how you interact with the user interfaces. Now, for example, think about email application. So email application, the first step would be like you log into the system, right? So when you log into the system, then you might see the emails that you have received, typically in the inbox. Then depend on your requirement, you might read an email, or you can write an email. So likewise, you can think how your how your information system, the flow of this. So we call this storyboard. So from the first screen to the second screen to the third screen and so on. So how you do things, right? I will show you like some of the storyboards and we can discuss in detail. Then focus on usability. Now, when I say focus on usability is like usually users are asked to do some tasks, and some of the things you can make it default, like automatically it will select the default choice. So you don't have to, do that. So you cannot automate. So the most frequent one you can select by default. Next, you have to always get the user's real feedback. Once you design, ideally what should happen, you have to contact the respective user base and you can present your design and get the feedback. Last point, you have to document everything. So which is again another important aspect, because the software development will be teamwork, and then you have to think about maintenance as well as maintained by various different teams, right, across the organization. So it's always best practice that you document everything about your design. Right. Okay. Next couple of slides I show you like typical objects that you will see. So I have taken these couple of screens from various different operating systems and look like. So these are, you can think these are like some of the components you will see in user interfaces, starting from text boxes. So here what you see is a text box. And ideally nowadays you will see there's a grade, text which indicates that what to enter, right? And then, for example, when somebody tries to enter something, sometimes you will get some message which tries to help the user. So these are like some graphical elements you can actually use. Sometimes when you type something, you can actually, list down related items. For example, when you type auto, you can have auto completion. So you might have noticed that nowadays when you try to type something in a text box, you will see that it's automatically filled up, right? The next one is, you can make some selections. Now, for example, you have check boxes, we call check boxes. So you will see that, box shape, square shape indicators where you can actually select multiple items. Then we have optional boxes, we can select one item, right? For example, gender, maybe you can select one of them. Maybe you can make some choices. Let's say what you want to select. So you can have multiple selections. Similar to that, you can have various different types of, buttons, from large button to a standard size buttons. And you might have noticed that okay and cancel. And then sometimes we have drop down lists like this. You have things to select here. And then you have list boxes, list items. Then you have, rulers where you can actually adjust the values. For example, the values can be set it here, for example, from 0 to 100. And then you can adjust the bar so that according to that one, you can make some changes. And finally, you will have, grouping items. You might see this group item where this can be used to group these items in a user interface. So similar ones in various different operating systems are here as well. For example, in this one, you will see in mobile interfaces, graphical interfaces, where how things are represented. And normally look and feel will be slightly different. I think this is Windows, this is Mac, and this is Android. You have seen. And then this is iPhone, so iOS. You see these are the, different uh, graphical elements you will see in the interface. Right. Now, this is the one that I want you to do in today's session. So this is called user storyboard or UI storyboard. And where this kind of a graph I want you to develop during your group work. So let me explain how it works. And you see there's a blank circle here, which indicates that this is the starting point. And that means this is the start screen. So let me right. I want to zoom out this. Right. Hope you can see me. Okay, we have this. Right. First of all, you can notice that in this graphical representation, this user storyboard indicates the starting point. That means this is the very first, this is the very first screen that you will see in your information system. So usually you know that you have to sign in into any information system. So this is the logo, and then you have a username, and then you can type login. And that means if you have a registered account. If you're not registered, usually we have a sign up button, right? And you can notice that depending on what you click, you will get different, outcomes, different screens. Now, for example, let's say you are a new user. If you're a new user, you notice that you will have to sign up first. You click sign up, and then usually you have to provide your information, right? And when you sign up, when you provide this information, you go to the next screen, right? So arrow indicates that how information flows. So this will indicate that you click the sign up button, and then you get a new screen. So you see the screen as well. So in the lab class, actually, we will discuss how we can use a tool like Figma to draw a user interface like this. Okay, let's say that you have already registered and you type login. And once you log in, you will put it to what we call your profile view, your home screen, in other words. So this is what normally you will indicate. So this arrow indicates that when you come, usually you will be presented to the profile view. So there'll be some graphic and some information in here. And then you can have like, a couple of buttons, and you can see, depending on what you click, you will be present to the next iteration. Right, now let's look at the borrow section, where what you are going to borrow here. So you can say, in this particular case, when you click borrow, it will present set of items that you can borrow, right? And you can search if you want some of the results. So here, like it will list down 4 items when you search. So it will present the search result. And then what happens, you might click one of them, right? So in here, you will notice that it indicates that, let's say you are clicking this one. So what will be presented next, right? So usually when you click it, you will present to a particular item. And so you will have item name and the user, and then you are going to make a bid. So in this particular system, I forgot to inform you that you make a bid, and those who have bid the highest, depending on the time, then you will get the item. So when you click the make a bid, so you will see the bid value and then number of hours, and then you can click a bid for this. And if you click the user, you can, this is about the particular item and the owner of this. So you can get the contact information, right? So that's, one way to come up to this one. So that means after search and you are selecting. I'm going back to where we have. Right. Now, once you actually, put up bids and stuff, so there are 2 buttons. As a user, you can click on my stuff, which will be presented into, your items. So the items are listed here. And again, like in early case, these are like you have bid and you have already got to you. So therefore, when you click on the item, you will notice that you have the name of the item. Owner will be you, right? And this is also some information is here, right? And then the next one is your bids. If you click on your bids, then you will be present to another screen, right? So you will notice here things I'm borrowing, and then you have some information about how much bid you have placed on these items. And when you click on items, then it's not available for you, but it's presented here, right? Okay, so these are some of the interactions. So likewise, you can notice that you can present each and every interaction, and you have to focus on what elements you are going to include. Like things that we have discussed from the previous one is we have different graphical user interface components. So what are the things that you are going to include? So if you can roughly sketch on this, that would be enough for the time being. And I want you to draw by hand or maybe use a simple graphical tool to come up with kind of a sketch. Don't spend too much time on this. You need to show your features available in your system in a graphical representative way, right? You can say, you can show you like how do you log in, like once you log in, what is presented, and in each and every interaction, like clicking a button, like how will we go through in the next step. So that's what we are expecting from this part. Right. Going back to the note again. So final would be something similar to this. And you can notice that you will have all the screens are drawn and connected with arrows indicating the workflow going from screen one to the next screen, right? Until you get the last one, right? So you can go through this and you can have the links. Okay, so the next one that I want to discuss is in the design. Sometimes you have to think about different devices as well. Now in this here, we will focus on your interaction. But then when you're designing, you have to focus on different devices as well. It's like this. Now you have a program, and then you are going to develop it for a mobile, or you can use it in the tablet, and you can use it in the desktop. So all these different cases, you will present how you are going to interact with each other, right? So that's something that you have to think about. And in actual designs, people actually design how it look like in various different devices. Like for example, at least you can focus on mobiles, and then tablets, and then maybe computer screen, right? So you have to cover these. Right. Now let me show you a couple of screenshots, some from very basic to some of the things that you could do. Now first of all, this is like the very first screen which is shown in a student registration system. So as you can see is in this particular information system, it shows you all the student services, starting from registering students to printing class rosters, entering grades, printing grade reports, getting help, and exit system. Everything will be in one single place. And then when you click a particular button, you will present to a new interface. Right. So what are the things you have to focus on when you are designing an information system? First one is we have to make it a very simple one, right? Do not include too many things in the small screen, right? So it should be very simple and easy to use. So the idea of the user interface is you are enhance the user productivity. You are going to improve it, right? So always you can provide the help and the feedback. And since we are using graphic, it should be very attractive design or layout, and you always use familiar terms and images, right? There are some things that we will use, like for example, username and password are common. I mean, use that, what is common ones, right? And similar to that, you can use images so that everybody gets the same message, right? When you're developing it, make sure that you enhance the interface uh, and focus on data entry screens. I told you, you can help a lot to the users. And then you can also check validation rules. For example, let's say age. So let me ask this as a question right now. Right. So in this particular case, the focus is, how do you validate? Right now, the example I have got is like age of a person. So you can say that it could be, as Kularatna mentioned, like you can focus on integer values only. So the valid one should be integers, and then you have to ignore negatives. In other words, you can actually focus on range. So you can say that, okay, age should be in between 0 to 120, right? Assuming that the max age is 120, right? If anything goes beyond that, it's not within the range, you will say it's invalid, right? So this is very, very important, because the quality matters and you have to take control of this. So all this information should be there. The last one is input volume. Like if you ask everybody to enter everything, it's too much burden. For example, today's date, you can make it default, right? You can automatically get the today's date and a time, and that can be already filled in your screen, right? So idea is you reduce the input volume. You request only what is essential, right? Make sure that these things when you are designing your user interfaces. Okay, next ones. This is what I call the functional decomposition diagram. So this, if you start with something like this, it will be helpful for you to understand what are the things that you need to do, right? So for example, in this particular case, it will show you the menu hierarchy. So it's like this now. You will first present the main menu. Then depending on what they want to do, you can do something related to customers, orders, or the products. And if you go to customers, then these are the operations the user can perform. So you see, that will be helpful for you when you are designing the structure. And this is the other one, like going from one screen to the other screen. This will show you like you will be presented to the main board. And when you click on add project record, you will be presented another interface, another screen, where you are supposed to enter values, and then you are going to do something about it, right? So this will indicate when you click it, you'll get this. So that's what will indicate. This is the third one that I was referring earlier as well. You have to reduce the input. That means what users are supposed to enter in your users screen. So there are a few things that your system can generate. For example, the order number, you can be automated. I don't know whether if you're using databases that you can automatically increment this, and you can extract that information and put it here. Then you can calculate or retrieve by the system. For example, the green ones. System can be generated, for example, date and time, right? And then things like, okay, there are two things that I want to highlight. So the blue ones, what user enters, and green ones, what system generates. Now, for example, now it does custom ID, and you have to type your custom ID. When you type custom ID, the system can find out customer name, and then you can update here. That's why it's in green, right? And in this particular case, you are filling the orders, and when you want to fill in the orders, you have to just add the item ID. Your system could automatically fill the description, and then you can add the quantity that person won't purchase, Then you can add unit price and you can calculate the price, right? And then the next one is it can also automatically generate total price, taxes, and grand total and so. So you see that there are three things that you can include in your user interface, especially when you're focusing input. So you can have things generated by the system. Then user enters user enters some information. Third one is the system can calculate, or they can simply retrieve. So that's what we have highlighted in different colors. Right. Now that we look at the inputs, let's look at the output as well. So once you have the inputs to the system, usually you generate reports. So here I'm going to briefly discuss what are the types of reports generated in the system. Right. So you can have detailed report, exception reports, or summary reports. So detailed report means like you have all the details included for each and every report. You can have each line for everything. We can call it a detailed report, right? Then exception report, which means like you can set up some particular criteria, and if it meets, then you can have exception report. Summary report, then you will present it in the top management. Usually you can actually summarize the details. So when you're designing reports, again, similar to input, you have to be careful. It should be attractive, professional, and easy to read. So why this is important? You have to spend quite a lot of time if you want to design a good report, right? So you have to look for things like headers and footers, then column headings, alignment, spacing, right? Grouping details. So all this you have to be considered when you're designing a good report design. And not only that, let's say you are designing multiple reports, they should be consistent. Like if you're using styles, themes, the colors, and the fonts, it should be consistent, right? So ideally, you should stick into one design principle. Like, for example, you can select a couple of colors, not various different colors, and change it here and there. So you can be consistent on what colors to be used, what fonts to be used, what size to be used, and so, right? Again, very important when you're designing reports. Right. So you will notice here a simple example where this is called employee hours report. It's called a detailed report. You can notice that you see breaks, you can see subtotals, grand totals, some headers, some footers, page numbers, everything is there, right? So sample output report. Sample, you can say detailed report. Right. Now, next one I would like to discuss is some technology issues, right? So interface, when you're designing, you have to look for opportunities and also the problems that you have to face, right? So this will affect your both input and output. So if you look at the technology, so output technology you can focus on, you can output to a screen, or you can make it out a printout, right? So you have to decide whether you are going to just display the outcome on the screen, or maybe nowadays you will see we don't print, we will email, you will get a digital copy of this. So nowadays we think about the footprints. Therefore, you don't normally, print bills nowadays. You can make it digital, right? And you can email, you can message, right? So things are, changing nowadays. Right, various different output types and technologies, especially internet-based delivery, emails, blogs, instant messaging, wireless devices, digital auto, images, videos, podcast, automated facsimile systems, compute output to microfilm, computer output to digital media, specialized form of output. Likewise, there are various different outputs. Again, it's depend on what exactly you want to have and what exactly you want to represent in your information system. Right. Now, starting from the input technology, if you look at what has happened from previous early days to today, there were a lot of changes. So traditionally, if you look at the traditional input mechanisms, we are using like keyboard, mouse, and so on. Whereas nowadays, you can simply look at even your body movements. You can use voices, right? Or you can use RFIDs, radio frequency identifications. So which is, we can say, evolving. Now, if you go on towards, what might happen in future, even just thinking might be enough you to capture, your brain computer interfaces. So your system can detect the brain waves, and then maybe you just have to think of, just think, and then it happens, right? So remember, like this is how input technology could be changed from what is traditionally available and then what is emerging. Right. Input methods, again, you have to make it cost efficient. For example, sometimes when you input, you can make it online. What do you mean by online? So as soon as when you enter, it will get recorded. Or maybe you can delay and then you can do it as a batch wise, right? So if you use batch wise, if you use online, it will happen all the time. But if you add batch wise, then you can decide how frequently you are going to do it. For example, you can do every day, which means maybe like after hours, or every week, or month, or quarter, and so on, yearly. So that you need to decide how you are going to do this, right? So although we talk about the various different situations, most of the time we need online data entry, right? Many advantages. One is the data can be immediately validated, and the data is also available. Right. The input-output methods, especially input, you can make it automate most of the time. So when you automate things, it's fast, accurate, and you can minimize any human errors, right? So if you look at the POS terminals or ATMs, right? So these can be used to automate input techniques. For example, nowadays you don't need anything. Maybe if you have an ID card with a barcode, that could be used to identify people, right? So in that way, it will be very easier. So whether you are going to do it online or a batch, that means you are going to, as soon as it happens, or you are going to do some regular interval, that depend on what you want, right? So it depends on the business requirement. Security and control issues, again, another important aspect. When you say output, you have to look at the physical protections. So for example, if you are thinking about the computer system, you have to have a secure place, secure door, secure entry systems, and so on. So, and then again, unauthorized access. So that everything could be controlled, right? So how do you handle that? You can have audit trails, which means you can, record each and every, task happen to information system. For example, nowadays, everything will be recorded, who users are in the system and who access what, everything will be recorded. Then you can encrypt. For example, your username and passwords could be encrypted. And password security, meaning like you can have security policies like how strong your email address and then, password, so that you can actually check. You can specify minimum number of characters and with the difficulty as well, right? So who can view your data, how or what can be accessed could be controlled. So that's what you need to get from here. Then strategies, you have to avoid like major issues in the design. So you can use two strategies. First one is module design approach, and you can use prototyping. So those are the two techniques that you can use to avoid or limit the problem you are facing. So what is modular design, right? So in modular design, you create what we call modules. That means individual components. And then it will connect to a high level your program or the diagram. So in structured design, we have what we call the processes, right? And usually these are represented as the data flow diagrams. In object-oriented design, usually you have what we call object classes, right? So when you are designing large-scale system, right, you have to focus on various areas and integrate the results in modular design. Second one, I told you the prototyping, that usually we say early rapidly constructed working version of the proposed information system. And then you can use two types of prototyping: system prototyping and design prototyping. Okay, so with that said, we can come to we can conclude the theory part. As I told you, what we discuss is the basics that we need to design an information system, use information system. Okay, now let's focus on the implementation of this. Take a screenshot of the group work, because I'm going to put you into the groups and then you are going to work on this. Okay, first one is you have to decide an organization. Think about the university, think about a hospital, think about more challenging environment. The more challenging, then you can actually think about in deep, and then you can come provide a good solution, right? So maybe delivery service, maybe taxi service, right? Maybe e-commerce platform, right? So likewise, decide in your organization. That's the first task you need to do. And again, you can decide on your own, discuss among yourself, decide on which organization you are going to focus on. Second one, you are going to create the information, user interface design for this proposed organization, the proposed information system, right? And remember the things that we have discussed. We discussed a couple of ideas how you may create a user-centered interface, which is easy to learn and use. We discussed that. Think about those concepts that we have discussed there. And second one, when you're building the interface, focus on the user needs and apply the principles that we have discussed on the human-computer interaction. Third one, think about what we call the input masks. That means you can restrict the data entry. You can check for the data validation. You can keep source documents and printed reports. So those are like some of the things that you can think about including this, right? So as I told you earlier, the main point that I want to highlight is you should develop what we call the user storyboard, something similar what I have showed you earlier. Maybe you can take a copy of that one as well. Okay, take a screenshot of this, because this is exactly what you are going to build. Idea is you are going to start from the very first screen, and you have to decide what elements you are going to have and how you actually go to the next session. Like, for example, you're clicking a button or you are entering some information here, which will be presented to a new interface. Right. Okay. Now that we have done this, maybe I will mark the attendance and then we'll move it.